What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Halftime Show with your boy Courtlandt Griffin. We've been gone for a while, but we back again. And what better way to bring back the halftime show than on the eve of the start of the WNBA season? As we know, these ladies have been doing such great things. There've been a lot of moves going on, and a lot of things going on surrounding the WNBA. And what better and who better to bring on than my big bro, a guy who knows so much about the W. Man, he trumps me in a lot of WNBA knowledge. I learned a lot from him, my guy, Danny Thompson.
Courtland. I'm glad to see you back, man. I missed watching the halftime show, and now I'm on with you this week. So I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm glad to be on.
Man, I'm glad to have you back. I think, if I remember right, I think Danny was my first guest on the halftime show. So,
You gotta get your check-ins every now and then, right?
for sure, for sure. So again, as y'all know, man, when we start the halftime show, we gotta do the halftime adjustments. Just our version of quick hit. So I do want to start with some initial news. Becky Hammon and the Las Vegas Aces were handed down some consequences for some actions that were taking place. Hammond was suspended, and I believe that the Aces lost a draft pick, which a lot of people have their reservations and some their gripes about the suspension and the loss of a draft pick. But Danny, what did you think?
Well, I mean, the good thing is that it actually happened. I didn't know what was the timing of it. How the investigation was going to turn out, or any of the things that were behind it. We heard about this earlier in the offseason, but we didn't know what was going to turn into. So I'm glad they finally got it together and made it. Picks are always drafting now. It's the same value of draft picks don't feel the same as it is. Maybe 2 years down the road, because we see first round draft picks get cut. So maybe that pick might not mean much to the Aces in 2025. But I will say this: the 2 games was, I don't know if it was enough, but the investigation says that there was only one player that spoke on De'Erica's behalf. It was Liz Cambage, who ironically wasn't on the roster when this happened. So. Wow. But there was also 30 members of the organization also interviewed. So, it's he say, she say, but I'm pretty sure De'Erica is going to have, her say on the court. I think at this point it's on the court when the Aces and the Sparks get together, because, we need stuff like that in the league. Now we don't want nobody being talked about when they're pregnant or, those types of digressions, but we kind of want, more rivalries and more storylines as the league progresses this year.
Oh, for sure. And when I read that report as well, like the Liz Cambage report, it was kind of weird, because it was like, okay, well, she wasn't on the roster, but could this have been, had this been the not the Las Vegas, but the Los Angeles Sparks, probably would have been a little more controversy surrounding it. But I think with it even being the Aces, it's still a little bit more controversial, because that relationship wasn't great. She hasn't left a great relationship with the franchise she's left. So it was kind of weird, but I can also understand, we don't know exactly what she said, but, it could have played a part in the suspension and ultimately the loss of a draft pick. But there's been more. There's more controversy surrounding the WNBA. LSU president William Tate IV blasted WNBA after the release of WNBA draft pick and former national champion now and LSU Tiger, Alexis Morris, and a plethora of other WNBA draft picks after cuts. Do you think this was warranted, Danny, or do you feel like this was just like kind of a in the moment knee-jerk reaction?
If you watch the WNBA as fans and media members, we've been saying this for almost 3 years now. You watch first round. I mentioned it earlier. We watch first round draft picks get cut consistently. We literally watched Courtland. Now I'm starting to blank, from the Aces, not the Aces, from the Wings. The number 1 pick, Charlie Collier. 2 years ago, the number 1 overall pick just got released after 2 seasons. Why? Because the teams are loading themselves with draft picks, and guess what? picks get cut every single year. And I understand that LSU won the national championship. Of course, the president is going to say, Alexis deserves an opportunity because she was a really good ball player. I'm just not big on how she handled on social media afterwards. I'm not a big fan of how the Connecticut Sun did either. They talk about her in pregame, they cut her 3 hours later. But this is the hardest league in the world to get into. It's only 144 spots. So you draft 36 women every single year to try and take a bunch of other women's spots. It's not going to happen very often.
I will say this, and this kind of goes into our next halftime adjustment. I'll just go ahead and cue that up. Um, I do think it was warranted. I don't like the way it was done. Like you said, I don't like the way Alexis Morris kind of went to social media. But what can you say to a player who was drafted after winning a national championship and being considered one of the better players in this year's draft, and maybe being the contributor on that Connecticut Sun team, and all of these things surrounding, of course, those higher profile players and draftees, I should say, and then you get cut. Like you said, Charlie Collier, who many lauded as easily probably one of the best players out of that draft, if not the best player out of that draft. And even in hindsight, now she's now without a team. It's kind of scary to think that you can be a number one pick a year, and after 12 months, you're on the chopping block, or you could be on the chopping block. It's and it kind of goes into, does this water down the product for the WNBA? Does this kind of make the WNBA product look a little less attractive to maybe players like Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson, and others that may be coming out within the next couple of years?
I mean, they're not going to. They're not rushing to go play the WNBA, especially with NIL money at the current moment. Here's the thing that we have, right? We've been Courtlandt. We followed this league and we watched this league literally probably since the inception of the league. Recently we've been stuck on 12 teams for about I think the last 7 to 10 years. I'm just going to give that ballpark number, but we haven't seen expansion. And without expansion, this league is not going to grow. And the reason why the league isn't growing is because Courtlandt, we watch the NCAA tournament every year. We've watched it the last 4 or 5 years and how it's been better than the men's tournament. And I mean, it really is what it is. But the stars that we get out of the women's NCAA tournament, a lot of them get cut before we have a chance to see them on the next level. So if I want to follow, Alexis Morris at the next level, I want to follow Bria Beal at the next level because I was a big fan of theirs in college. Those just 2 names in general. Guess what? They're gone. They're on a roster. So why am I going to watch it if I can't follow the people from the college teams I enjoyed watching? So, other than Caitlin Clark and your Paige Buchers and Angel Reese, they're going to go in the top 3 next year in the WNBA draft because they're draft eligible. If you're that second tier star, I'm not running to play the WNBA right now. I know I want the competition factor, but I might just make more money in college. So is it a bad product? Courtlandt, we can take this in so many different directions. The product is great as it's going to be because we can't expand it because there's too many parameters holding the league back from expanding.
And that's the thing that kind of sucks, man. Like when I'm on Twitter a lot. I get into Twitter spaces a lot, and you hear people and they're like, "Man, I like the W, but it's hard to watch because of this and that and the third." And then you hear so many other people saying, "Man, we need more teams," and I'm one of those people. Like I feel like we need more teams, we need more roster spots, so on and so forth. And of course, there are things that hold that back. But I think also not having, there are a lot of things. I mean, the WNBA in itself, it's been around for about as long as I've been alive, 27 years now. I'm 30, so you can kind of, they're a young league still, regardless of how popular they are. Even to the crowds that don't watch it, it still has a popular following, still has a cult following in itself. They're still a young league. There's still room to grow. They're still trying to figure it out. The NBA was on the verge of going bankrupt and being out of the picture before Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came along, and then of course Michael Jordan came and took it international. So who knows what may happen? We may have that player in the W right now. We may have a Larry Bird and Magic Johnson type resurgence with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark coming next year, right? That may be that boost that people want and the WNBA needs. And who knows what who the female version of Magic not Magic Johnson but Michael Jordan could be to take the game international or to that that big boom that we want to see. But all in all, getting to our first topic here, um, I do want to talk about something that could help the WNBA with that popularity. And that is two teams that are at the top as far as odds um, goes for the WNBA Finals. And that's the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. About 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, me and Danny had a conversation about Breonna Stewart, and I kind of alluded to her being a New York, a New York Liberty wearing seafoam green. Little did I know that I had a little bit of Nostradamus in me, and I kind of predicted it. So, but then I could not have seen the other plethora of moves that the New York Liberty made to bolster this roster. It's amazing. And of course, the Aces. If the cliche of we don't retool or rebuild, we reload. They did that, adding Candace Parker in the offseason, as well as a couple of other players. So when you look at these two teams, Danny, who do you give the edge to, and why, and what could be the X factor on each team as we get ready to start the season?
I think the edge goes to the Aces, and the reason why is continuity. You still have the majority of the main core group together with the Aces. Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray. You have Jackie Young, Ricardo Williams. They still have the majority of the same team together. The only difference, really, the major difference, is the fact of you swap out the six woman, one of the best six women the league has ever had, Dearica Hamby, and you add a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Candace Parker, who still has a lot going for herself. And she comes into a role kind of the same way she did in Chicago, where she doesn't have to be the best, to be the person that's got to score 20 points a game, grab 10 rebounds. She can just go out there and just make an impact everywhere. And, Courtland, for WNBA fans, for people watching women's basketball, we remember when Candace Parker came in the league and how she transitioned the league. And now Asia Wilson is just on that same type of trajectory or arc as how what Candace Parker was. To see them come together as one unit on the same team doing the same thing is going to be an amazing thing to watch. Chelsea Gray is probably the best point guard of the entire league. Kelsey Plum is skyrocketed herself into probably one of the 10 best players in the league. Jackie Young is super underrated. And like I said, Becky Hammond is a coach, and the Aces have continuity. Now the other side, now the other side, the New York Liberty put themselves together like the Miami Heat did. You put together, they trade for Jonquel Jones, who's top three. She's literally a top three player in Connecticut. Best center in the league, can do anything you ask her to do, and she's now showing range on the outside shot. So what else do? You have Jonquel Jones. They already had Sabrina Ionescu. They already had Benaj Eleni. So what do? You go out and assign Breonna Stewart in the middle of her career, a la Kevin Durant, just bringing her into the fold. LeBron James bringing her in the fold. And then on top of that, you get a point guard extraordinaire like Courtney Vandersloot. So you have two loaded rosters and under one of the best head coaches in the league, one of my favorite head coaches in New York, Sandy Brondello. Love Sandy. She covered her for years in Phoenix. You get Sandy Brondello with all this talent around her. The coaching staff. The one thing the Liberty we got to figure out is what kind of bench does the Liberty going to have. Like I said, we talked about the talent in the league. Maria Johannes is not with the team at the beginning of the season. She's still overseas and might not even come play this year. Her contract's been suspended. One of New York's fan favorites, Dee Dee Richards, is now no longer on the roster. She was one of the ones that was cut at the last minute. Niera Sabali, Satu's little sister, is on the roster, but she is kind of in a situation where she hasn't played basketball in 16 months. they're easing her back into it. And then there's going to be some players because of the World Cup and qualifying that's going to be in and out of the roster for the Liberty. So they still have some things they have to put together. And then I forgot, you can't forget about Steph Dolson, who it was one of the major factors of why Breonna Stewart's in New York. So it's so many similarities to what, of building teams and what we saw in the NBA with Golden State and Miami. We're super, if you're a W fan, you're super excited to see those two teams. All these games are going to be must-watch television games. You can't miss any of those 4 games.
Yeah, and I believe they have 4 contests
Mm-hmm.
to play against, and it's going to be fun. I believe the Aces got the edge in the preseason games that they played. But I mean, for me, right? Shout out to my guy Eric Wilson. Sorry, we had to steal one half of the Vanderquigs from Chicago. But that's the part that kind of scares me is if I'm the rest of the league. I mean, of course, I'm afraid of these 2 rosters anyway. But if I'm New York, I'm kind of looking at it. You got Courtney Vandersloot, but Amanda Quigley, I think, is taking this year off.
Allie Quigley, yeah.
Yeah, she's taking this year off, and then the Lord knows. I mean, the Vanderquigs don't travel by themselves. They don't. They haven't played, apart from each other. I don't think ever in their careers. So it's kind of one of those things where, maybe Quiggs comes and suits up in Seafoam Green as well, and then she'll be a steady. This could be a 2-3 year series, coast to coast series. If this is played out right.
I mean, and the thing is with the Liberty, right? The Liberty is so loaded. When you look at it starting 5 like that, it's the thing of, if you bring it Allie Quigley the rest of the year, who are you going to get rid of? The Liberty still have, I said, Benajelani she's still on this roster. Han Yu is a big time center from, like I said, from China. She's going to miss time sometime in June, which she leaves for China to go qualify for the World Cup. And like I said, Kayla Thornton was a huge addition from Dallas. So if you're trying to bring her on this roster, who are you getting rid of?
Yeah, that's the question.
Like, who are you getting rid of? I mean, Jocelyn Willoughby, it just does everything you ask her to do. And like I said, I think she might have been the one that was lastly making the roster. So who are you going to get rid of? I mean, at this point, like you said, Courtland, these 12 rosters across the league are so loaded with talent. You have so many people waiting on the sideline just to play. But in the Aces and Liberty series, I just wonder if when Chelsea Gray looks at, Courtney Vandersloot on the other side, and literally the 2 best point guards in the WNBA that's playing, because Skylar Diggins-Smith is out. So let me put the disclaimer out now. Skylar Diggins isn't playing at this point, so I can't say she's one of the 2 best point guards. Right. But so with the 2 best point guards that are actually healthy, they're actually in the league right now. Mm-hmm. Chelsea Gray plays the biggest moment. She is ready for the big moments. Like, Chelsea Gray is a top 10 player in the league. Vegas has 4 top 10 players, Courtland, on the roster, and I think New York has maybe 3 or 4 themselves. So,
yeah, if you want to count Sab, if you want to, but Brianna and John Quill for sure. And in my opinion, when you pair those 2, right, it's a front court series in my opinion. That back court, we kind of know what we're going to get. She's going to ball. Vandersloot's going to ball. Sab's going to ball. But then when you look at those 2, those twin towers in the middle for both sides, you got Asia and Candace on one side, and then you got Stewie and John Quill on the other side. To me, John Quill, I think last year, she played very well, but I think now she has somebody that she can defer to, and you got to guard both of them, and then Sab for the outside shot, and Vandersloot can shoot from the outside as well. Of course, she's not Quigley from the outside, but but
and I think if you look at those who watched John Quill Jones last year, that was not just John Quill just having her off season in her lens. It was the fact that Alyssa Thomas became literally elite player last year. John Quill's numbers kind of went down, but she was the MVP 2 years ago. So we're not saying that she's not literally a top 5 player in the league. And we look at the Aces lineup. Benajelani is the 5th best starter in that lineup. Benaja Laney is the 5th best player in the Liberty starting 5.
And she's a walking bucket.
And she was literally an all-star 2 years ago, was kind of injured a little bit last year, and she didn't get herself on tracking all season. But we're not like Benaja Laney is that good. So when she's the 5th best starter in that starting 5, that just tells you how
How deep that team, right?
how loaded it is. How loaded. That's a loaded roster.
And the scary thing is when your 5th best player has the ability that Benaja Laney has, it kind of shows, like you said, it kind of shows you the talent that's on that roster, but it also makes you wonder, like, if Stewie's having an off game, John Quill can pick it up. If John Quill and Stewie are having a bad games, we've seen Sab literally wield his New York. I've seen it as someone who covered the team. I saw Sab when this roster was kind of up and down and kind of shaky, and you didn't know what you really had. There was some talent there, and there was some promise. Sab literally has the ability to put this team on her back and make plays. I'm not going to say unlike anybody else in the league, but she does it in a fashion that I haven't seen. That's a widespread thing across the league. So Sab and Bet, and B, they play off each other very well. You're going to have them actually have a front court that's solid this year. It's going to be fun to watch, to say the least.
It is. It is. I mean, Benaja in their exhibition game, Benaja had 14 points on 3 threes, 3 for 3 from beyond the arc. So, it's like pick your poison, even on the other side. But for the Aces on that side, get lost in the shuffle. We talk about how good Benaja Laney gets lost in the shuffle. Jackie Young is just as good out in Vegas, and she's not going to get talked about because, once again, you have 4 All-Stars in the starting 5. And, of course, there has to be the 5th person in the group that doesn't get talked about a lot. But Jackie Young is she was the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. So, of course, she's good. And she's good when she's the second highest paid player for the Aces. That just tells you how valuable she is to this team. And it's like kind of like Benaja Laney. They're just so loaded. But there's 10 other teams that are ready just to take them down. And I don't know if it's going to be a cakewalk for these 2 to get to the finals.
Man, no. And so that goes into our next topic of who's the threat to the throne, man. We understand that those 2 teams are, of course, at the top of the Vegas voting odds and the kind of the 2 teams that stick out because of the moves. But who of the other 10 teams in the WNBA would you say is a threat to either one of these teams?
I mean, you look at so like I said, we had some change around the league to show. So when you combine the mega powers in New York and Vegas is for what it is. Connecticut lost Jonquel Jones, but they're still a very good team. Alyssa Thomas is extremely good. They still have talent players. They still have DeWanna Bonner. So I mean, there are still talent on that roster. You look at, you see on the screen Washington. If Elena Deladon is healthy, EDD can literally carry a team by herself as well too. The last time EDD was completely healthy, they won the championship. So I'm not going to take that away from them. I'm not going to sit here and say they're not as talented. Sleeper teams, LA is a sleeper team. Once the Erica Hammer gets back in the lineup, they have the Agumake sisters. Want to see what Jasmine Thomas does in the backcourt as the new point guard out there. But you have to watch out for Los Angeles. Minnesota gets Nafisa Collier back. She was out for the majority of the season being pregnant. She's had the baby, exciting baby to have on the scale, and now she's completely healthy. And Courtlandt, I'm not going to lie, she's the MVP candidate up there in Minnesota. She is that good of a basketball player. Phoenix, we all know the story with Phoenix. We're, if anything, as not just a WNBA fan, as a human being, you are happy to see Brittany Griner back on United States soil, back to playing basketball and just being Brittany. For someone like people like us who cover the league, big shout outs to Raphael Haynes as well too. We're all part of the 3-point conversion WNBA family. To see her, just back on the basketball court is an amazing thing to see. And on top of that, Diane Taurasi is playing for, it seems like, the 83rd year in a row. She's still knocking down threes. They're really going to miss not having Skylar Diggins-Smith until I'm not sure when or if she will be back at all this year. So that's one team. But I think my other sleeper team you have to watch, the Atlanta Dream. Ryan Howard, Haley Jones, they get Cheyenne Parker for a full season. I love Ryan Howard. I think she's going to be a superstar in this league. Has so many athletic gifts given to her. She's a tremendous scorer, underrated on defense. She plays both ways. And I think Haley Jones, even though they talked about she's not the best shooter, but you get a player that can create shots for herself and others and play make. Listen, Tanisha Wright in Atlanta and where they're building that team, they could be a threat. A sleeper, quiet threat. And I'm sure there's a couple other teams I probably didn't talk about because of the segment, but those are the ones I'm looking at. Plus, like I said, there's still 6 other teams that we haven't talked about.
Right, and that's one of the reason why I put these two down in Natasha Cloud. I think
Natasha Cloud, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to say like a player that's won a championship in this league. Of course, like you said, EDD is going to be back healthy, and they won the championship in 2019. It's kind of weird, right? It's kind they're almost in a situation like the Lakers were this past year, right? Won the championship, went healthy. You retooled the team, like you get some additions, right? It's one of those weird things. You get your superstar back in the middle of this team, your team captain back healthy, and then Tasha Cloud has been she's been the cement that's held this team together even through the last couple of years that have been really tough for Washington. I think when you put that team on the court, they're not a pushover. They weren't a pushover last year. They're definitely not going to be a pushover this year. And she's excelled year in and year out. She's improved year in and year out. I love what Washington brings to the table. But I think LA, with like you said, De'Erica, the Ogwumike sisters, um, and just and how that team plays and how they played and galvanized around each other last year. I don't think that changes this year. I think those two teams are the biggest threats to Vegas. If I'm Vegas and New York, I'm watching what Washington and LA are doing.
Like I say, and when you and then like I said, once again, every single year in Connecticut, even though they haven't won a championship, you still, like I said, Connecticut is underrated every single year. Like I said, we talked, like I said, DeWanna Bonner. They got Tiffany Hayes, a healthy Tiffany Hayes from Atlanta. She's going to step into a major scoring role. They have Lauren Cox finally. Hopefully, she's healthy. But Brianna Jones and Alyssa Thomas and that front court together with DeWanna Bonner. We talk about front courts in LA and in Vegas. Connecticut's front court is just as good as anybody else's. And, we didn't talk about Chicago, but I really want to see how, Kalia Cooper turns it up to the next level when, they've lost a lot. They lost, I think, 4 starters off that team last year. Yeah, of course, I want to know who's going to win the scoring time between Jewel Lloyd in Seattle and Enrique Agubake and Umawale down in Dallas. Who is going to win that scoring title? Because I think those two are lead the league in scoring. But those are some of the storylines. And one thing, Courtlandt, we can say, the WNBA is on television this year. Like, they're getting more coverage this year than ever. I'm not sure how much you saw the TV coverage, but I think almost every single WNBA game is literally on TV this year. I think on some kind of format.
Not counting, and if you're watching this, please go to download the WNBA app. Please buy the ticket. It's a one-time fee. It's not a monthly thing, but it helps. It's $24.
Yeah, so seriously,
$25 for, I believe we're going up to 40 games this year.
40, yeah, the biggest WNBA season of all time, 40 games.
So we're going up to 40 games this year. I think $25 for 40 games it's not too bad of a bargain. I paid $16 2 years ago, so it's not too bad.
No, I think to be honest with you, we look at if you don't have the league pass, right, to look at the number of games that are on the different streaming platforms, and Courtlandt, we're talking, and the thing is, we talk about games on ABC and ESPN. There are games on CBS this year, like regular CBS this year. Ion jumped into the mix with their games. Who thought Ion of all networks with Scribs TV, who's now not only jumping into the WNBA, but also other streaming platforms, they got 40 games on Friday nights, including doubleheaders on Fridays. You have the WNBA on ESPN. You have it on Amazon because they're going to have the Commissioner's Cup. They are everywhere this year, so you can't, you can't miss the W this year, and you can't say it's not on television because they're growing the audience, which means there's only one thing left they have to do, which is expansion. with you have more television deals, more people watching games, just the aspect of the leagues. It's this time, Courtland. I know you're jumping back in, which is the beauty of live television because you go in and out, but it's time for expansion. I think WNBA fans have been clamoring for this for years. We've been begging for expansion. I think, like I said, with the new television deal, with more games being shown, you have more interest. And Courtland, I'm not sure if you saw this, but I'm pretty sure you did. But the game in Toronto, the exhibition game in Toronto, to me, just gave Toronto an expansion franchise. If that game didn't tell you that expansion is needed, 19,000 people to watch Minnesota and Chicago in an exhibition game. Now, here's where we talked about the league and their bad situation. This game wasn't shown on American television.
Yeah,
you couldn't watch a game where 19,000 people are watching a WNBA game. Merchandise is sold out right around halftime. It's not even the two best teams in the league. This is just showing that Canada's ready for a team. I know, Courtland, you're in Nashville, and you're a proponent of the Nashville team coming first. But I think after that exhibition game in Toronto is in the lead. They're the clubhouse. They're in the driver's seat. They're in first place with the division title clinched. They deserve a team in Canada at this point. And to be honest, with you might need to put one in Vancouver. You might want to put one on both ends of the Canadian coast. And then that way you have an instant rival with Canada. And then you don't have to put the pressure on American cities who are not 100% sure about the WNBA, and we can really get the 16 teams that this league needs.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Nashville is 100% in. But that goes into my next topic and our last topic for the night. New additions. And as you can see, I got 3. These are not real, these are mock-up logos that I kind of stole from Google. But one of them is the Nashville Stars, the Boston Shamrocks, the Boston Charm, and the Denver Gold, which I think are great names for WNBA franchises. But these are just 3 mock-ups. Like you said, 16 teams. Danny, we're at 12 teams right now.
Mm-hmm.
You said 16. I said 16, and then you do another 2-year expansion after that, another 4 teams to go up to 20. And I think that would round you out just enough because we talked about it. We have first-round picks. Charlie Collier cut. Alexis Morris cut. Taya Cooper is without a team. There are a couple of you got
Kelsey Gittrick. There's so many players.
Yeah, you got about 4 or 5 teams worth of WNBA talent sitting at home. Chiney Agwumike tweeted it out a couple of days ago. She said it's crazy that there's a plethora of talent training at home right now. There's rosters training at home right now, and that to me says we need expansion, right? Other leagues, of course, we know other sports leagues are also looking to expand outside of the NFL and the NBA. We know that they're probably set. They're probably never going to expand again. But we're talking about the MLB trying to expand. And now when you're looking at the WNBA, the MLB probably doesn't need to expand, right? They could be set with the 30 teams that they have and they'll be okay. But
I don't know. I think baseball is 32 at this point. I think.
Well, yeah, but if I had to say, like, what professional organization, right, or professional sports organization needs to expand the most? Which one needs the necessity of expansion the most? It's the WNBA.
I agree. MLS just added another team in San Diego today, so it can be done. But I don't know if you want to put the pressure on as many teams as possible. So, like, I think if you're going to expand correctly, I think we still need the 16 teams. I think you might go in intervals of 2. You bring 2 in 2024 and 2 in 2025. Then you see where the league is when we get to the next contract. So by 2030, you go 18, then 20. You just don't want to throw 4 teams in at one time because at the same time, as you grow and expand the league, you've also got to worry about scheduling. You also got to worry about start dates. You also have to worry about, the W has this is the only league in the United States that has to deal with players playing overseas. You have to deal with, if you're bringing them in NBA markets and NBA environments, how that's going to work with arena deals and how that's going to work with teams that share multiple buildings. Like, for example, with you see Boston and Denver on there, for example. If they decide to play in their NBA home arenas, guess what? You're starting a season in May. At the same time, the Celtics can have a playoff run and the Boston Bruins can have a playoff run on that side. And in Denver, the Colorado Avalanche just won a championship 2 years ago, and the Denver Nuggets are still playing right now. So can you imagine the WNBA season if Boston, which the Celtics have a playing now, and the Nuggets are playing now, how that wreaks havoc on the schedule? We watched that was it 2 years ago with Phoenix and the Suns. They had to move WNBA games to before NBA games because they didn't want to have to be a situation where it was a couple years ago where Phoenix is in the playoffs and they get shipped over to a university halfway across campus, or Courtlandt, as we all saw, when Washington was in the middle of their championship run, they had to go play games over at George Mason because their arena wasn't finished. They couldn't go downtown. So, you don't want that situation to happen. So I don't know if you put them all at one time, but you got to start somewhere. You got to go 14, then go 16, like you said a couple years out, and then add 2 to 4 more. But you're right. I mean, I think there's maybe 3 rosters we can put together. To be honest with you, with those 3 rosters, you will also rebalance out the talent across the league. You won't have as many super teams. Like, for example, we talk about Benajle and Jackie Young being the 5th best player in their team. Can you imagine them going to an expansion team and to be the number 1 option again? But Benajle went to New York to be number 1 or 1B to Sabrina Ionescu's 1A. She went from that to literally being the 5th option in less than 3 years.
And could you imagine? Because like we talked about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and the reason I kind of want to talk about this because this topic alone, we could run a whole hour show on, just with all of the nuances that go into it, right? And we've had this conversation off air before, in multiple phone conversations between the two of us, and within other mediums that we have contact in. But when I look at this, right, like I know I'm a big Nashville stan because I'm a Nashville kid, and I want to see within arm's reach a WNBA team. It would be great. But when I look at it, just imagine if you're a Nashville, you're a Toronto or a Vancouver, a Portland, or like if they bring a legacy team or 2 back, let's say it's a Sacramento Monarchs, or a
Houston Comets,
Charlotte Sting, right?
Cleveland
Imagine
Stars.
Right. So imagine having an Angel Reese and a Caitlin Clark on East and West teams.
Have that.
Let me get
that right. Cleveland Rockers, excuse me. Go ahead.
That's the reason I say Nashville Stars instead of, like, I know we've had a Stars franchise with the San Antonio Stars, but to me, Nashville, like, it's either Nashville Notes or or Nashville Stars. But regardless, just imagine having those 2 young ladies on opposite coast.
I mean, you talk about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. You're still missing the player that everybody in the WNBA is considered probably the number 1 pick in next year's draft, and that's Paige Bueckers. So the second Paige Bueckers is known as being healthy. She's the first pick of the draft, probably. Angel Reese is right there. Caitlin Clark probably might be number 1 because if a team is drafting her first, especially an expansion team, you put Caitlin Clark in the building, that thing is probably going to put 8,000 to 10,000 season tickets right then and there. And I think Angel Reese in the right market, you have to say the right market is literally going to be gold.
Oh yeah, she's box office.
And I think that because of the personality, she's like you said before, she stands up for being who she is. But this class in 2024 is probably the deepest class we've ever seen in this league. Coming into it, Haley Van Lith, Deja Kelly, I can't remember my girl's name out in for Iowa State. There's a whole bunch of super talented. Elizabeth Kitley at Virginia Tech. There is so much talent. Ashley Owansu when she finds a home in the transfer portal. Diamond Johnson when she gets her chance when she gets a home in the transfer portal. They're probably first round picks in the WNBA draft as well too. And I'm probably missing a couple of names. I can't remember her name from Tennessee now because it's now drawing a blank. She went back to school, and so because of NIL money, but the class in 24 is literally star-studded, it's loaded. That's why Kathy Engelbert needs to make a decision on making an expansion for 2024, because we cannot have another year, 2 or 3 where like I said, Angel Reese is a name. She's now going into a year where she can opt out and go play the WNBA. Another year of LSU or Iowa or UConn, Aaliyah Edwards as well too during the class. Another year of those teams getting in there and all those star players. Oh, Camila Cardoso at South Carolina, 6'7". She's the next coming.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We've gone 40 minutes of the show and hadn't talked about Leah Boston at all, which is crazy. But the talent level going into the league, we have to be able to watch them, and that's how you're going to build your fan base. By no offense, you got to have young talent infused in somewhere. Yes, I still want to see the best players in the world, but we have to be able to infuse young talent into this league, because that's going to get the league continuing to grow. You got to have those. You got to have that. And opening up 48 more jobs. And you know another thing, Courtland? Here's another thing that we have to do with these rosters. We have to have reserve spots for certain situations. If a player is pregnant, she shouldn't count against the roster. If a player is, like, for example, Darius O'Reilly, who's coming off a long-term injury, she should be able to be on like an IR list or something like that, where that way nobody loses a roster spot over it. Because if somebody gets hurt in the W, you gotta make a decision. You cut somebody, or you gotta bring somebody in, or you're gonna have to rock with a less set of players. You've got to be able to expand rosters at some point. 12 is not enough. NBA rosters are 15.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, when you look at these rosters, right, you're only holding 12 spots on a roster where you can hold 15. Up to 13 or 14.
You need 15 like the NBA does. The NBA has 15 with 2 development league players. Now, I wonder if I said the WNBA is not ready for a developmental league.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, do you think a W league, quote unquote, or WG league or GW league would be an option?
No, but I think what they do have is with athletes eliminated AU, I think that's very good stomp. That's a very good grounds for women to get more time. That was a player-started league, and there's a lot of WNBA players in that league. I think, when you see, I think if you start bringing up athletes unlimited, I think that's another way to get women's basketball another space. And to be honest with you, Courtland, here's what they can do. You can start small, like a small AU East, AU South, AU West, AU North, and put them in, not the biggest markets, but smaller markets, and be able to have them play each other, because that gives more and more of a keeps women in shape, one, keeps women at home, which they want to do, and keep them paid so they can keep themselves in shape, because they got to get ready for the WNBA season. So I think if we create, more teams at AU and put them in different spots, and find funding, like I said, it doesn't have to be the W, because we still need these women to have time to play. So, if the WNBA is watching this, I can come in as an assistant commissioner and come up with some ideas. Courtland can be my deputy. We can come in here, and make this work.
I will be more than happy to, because because the main thing, and I tell people this, and my message is clear. We understand profit sharing and stuff is different with the W, but go buy, if you're a man and you watch WNBA basketball, I'm going to go buy 2 this year. Go buy your WNBA jersey. Go buy a hat. Buy a WNBA hoodie. Buy the season pass. Go do something. Put money in this league, because this is a league that's growing, and they deserve just as much attention as the guys. I'm an NBA fan all day long. I love LeBron. I love the Lakers and all of the teams that are in the NBA. But the WNBA has been around now for 27 years, guys. 27 years, and they're still in the infantile. It seems like they're still, every time there's a step forward, there's 2 steps back as far as money and funding and fanfare and things of that nature.
When it comes to merchandise, hey Nike, can you please release jerseys for men's sizes? Can I find WNBA gear places? Corey, you talking about buying gear? We gotta find it. That's the other problem. Like you said, when there's one thing that's going forward, there's always 2 things going backwards. One of the concerns that people who don't watch the WNBA always says the league is losing money, the league is bleeding money, X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. That's not necessarily true. Now, does everybody have the same pockets? No, they don't. We do have differences in ownership groups, but mind you, not everybody's built the same, and not everybody has NBA money. But yet and still, support the women as much as you can. Like you said, League Pass is $24.99, and guess what? There's no blackouts. The only thing is blacked out is ESPN games. So you still get the majority of the league all season. You still get the CBS games. You still get everything else all season. That's if you get 1 million subscribers, Courtlandt, that's $25 million right in the league's pocket right then and there. If Nike would give you a chance to go buy a jersey in the fluffy men's size, I would probably have one on every single team in the league because that's what it is. And also, you just have to make it more accessible. And like I said, it's Courtlandt. There's so many. Like you said before, you said eloquently perfect. For every time there's a step forward, there's 2 steps backwards, and that's why the other part of the league hasn't gotten to where it's supposed to. But it's time for expansion. But we have to do this right because Courtlandt, we've watched this league contract teams as well too. We've talked about the league before. We've seen successfulness, and we've also seen contraction. We can't have contraction again either.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. Because Danny, you've been watching the course of WNBA longer than I have, of course. But when you talk about arguably the greatest team ever play WNBA basketball is possibly the Houston Comets. They don't exist anymore. San Antonio Stars don't exist anymore. The Sacramento Monarchs are no longer there. The Cleveland Rockers no longer there. The Orlando Miracle, yeah, no longer there. So
before I talk about champions, you mentioned Houston. You mentioned you've got Detroit Shock won a couple of championships, and they're
Detroit
gone.
Shock. Yeah.
They've actually relocated twice, but yet still they're not.
The Portland Blaze, I think it was.
They didn't last long.
But the whole point is I just right there we named 7.
The Utah Stars, another Stars team. Utah Stars are gone too. One of the original teams in the league. So we've had our share of contractions league. The Miami Soul down in Miami, they were gone too. I think
so we just named right there, just to put it in perspective, we just named 9 teams. If you added that to the WNBA right now, that's 21 teams, right?
Yeah. But then, like I said, with the condensed summer schedule, like I said, when you're getting into these high numbers, when you get to 20, you're gonna have to figure out how the schedules work. Like, I know Kathy's understanding of trying to do it correctly is that you can't expand, but you have to at some point. But then when you have to expand, then you have the real question of, okay, as we expand, and are we going to start games earlier or are we going to go deeper into the summer? That's the other part. I think with a lot of flexibility in the league literally ending in September now, you're running into NBA training camp. So like I said, these NBA shared facilities might be a problem. So I'm more of the type to go into unconventional NBA markets. Like you said, Nashville's not an NBA market, and also have
Not yet.
Nashville's not an NBA market under any circumstances at this point. It ain't happening. Like I said, you'll get baseball in the WNBA first. Okay,
that's fine. We'll take it.
NBA is like Nashville's not an NBA market. Okay, you can look at if you look at expansion. I'm a big proponent of Charlotte. You're not going to get that in Charlotte, but Nashville, I would even say, wow, we've done well in Connecticut. You could let's say Vancouver is one. If Canada gets it, Vancouver could be one because there's not an NBA team in that market.
Yes, Kentucky.
You could do one in Louisville. They have an arena for it, but maybe Pittsburgh. You could go into these St. Louis, Kansas City. You go into these unconventional non-NBA true markets that allow them to be the only thing in town, and that's how you could also go deeper into a season. Unless you have a facility that could able to hold a team that could hold 10,000 people, kind of the same way Chicago has a Wintrust Arena, the same way that Atlanta has down in College Park, the same thing DC has with the ESA in DC. You need to be able to have a facility that the team can play in without having to give up home dates. The NBA arenas are great, but sometimes you might not be able to get them. And I think maybe a 10,000 seat arena, like you said, Nashville has the auditorium. So if the Predators are playing a game over at Bridgestone, there's a 10,000 seat arena they're not using. That you have to renovate probably, but it makes sense.
And it requires massive renovations, but it's possible.
Yeah, but it's something that the owner that you would rather probably spend money to renovate an arena to the standard to make it work correctly than it is to use an arena that you might not be able to have all the dates for. Right. That's just an example. Those are things. Maybe Nashville might have their first might be the first team to have their first ever WNBA only facility. Nobody has that in the league. You know, even though Vegas plays in Mandalay Bay Arena, nobody shares it, but it wasn't built directly for the Aces either.
Right. And I think the great thing about the Aces did do is they built that team facility, the training facility.
That facility's
right.
gorgeous.
It's amazing. So I think you're going to see more teams possibly following in those footsteps and possibly doing that as well. So again, man, like additions are needed. We know that and again, like I said, we can go for hours talking about expansion and how much the WNBA needs expansion. But Danny, before we go, man, I just have one more thing that I kind of want to talk about with you, and that's of the rookies that are on a roster right now. Who do you think has the bigger impact on their team and why?
Wow. I'm gonna say I know Leah Boston was the first overall pick, and I know that she's going into a situation with Indiana where she gets the chance to be herself. But they just had a number 1 overall pick, Nilissa Smith, the year before. So I'm not. She's going to take a little bit of time to get in the league, but wow, if I gotta pick one, man, I'm having my back and forth in my brain conversation between Haley Jones in Atlanta and Diamond Miller out in Minnesota. I think Diamond Miller in Minnesota probably will win Rookie of the Year this year. I think she's not, because I think she's in a situation where she is going to be counted upon as a rookie to make a huge impact. The same way Ryan Howard made the impact in Atlanta, I think Diamond Miller is going to have an impact in Minnesota because Nafisa Collier can't carry this team by herself. She can, but you want to have somebody behind her that's going to be able to give her scoring and rebounding and take some of that pressure off her. And Diamond Miller, we saw that at Maryland last year. She can take the load, and I think she's going to be. I think she's the Rookie of the Year. So if any rookie impact for me, it's going to be Diamond Miller in Minnesota. I think Haley Jones will probably be second in Rookie of the Year voting. And I think Aaliyah Boston will probably finish third, only because I think she's got a little bit more in front of her, and they got to figure out how to work her and Alyssa Smith together.
Yeah, I was going to definitely say Haley Jones in Atlanta because I feel like what that team has and what they're building in that with that core, her and Renee Howard will be able to play off of each other, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so like I just think that combo is going to yield what they thought they had between her and they traded her to LA last year. I think
Kennedy Carter.
I think
who's not in the league either right now. So
right, which is crazy.
Well,
so
her Kennedy Carter, it was her decision at this point.
Well,
she's playing overseas in Turkey right now, averaging like 22 points a game over in Turkey right now, making more money than she did at W. But yet still, I digress.
Right. But so again, man, Danny, I appreciate it for you coming on, man. Again, it's always a pleasure. Danny's if y'all don't know, man, Danny's like a big bro to me. So he's been in rooms that I'm trying to get into, and with his help, hopefully I can get there. But Danny, can you tell them where to find your work, man?
Listen, you can follow my work on Substack. I have my personal Substack, which is called The Wonderful World of Data on Substack. It's free of charge. Like I said, it's the best free data service you have. And there will be some WNBA stuff once the season kicks in. I will have some WNBA stuff when they're just going, just merging the world of data. But also my NBA work is also at the 3pointconversion.com, which I'll be writing WNBA, NBA stuff all season. We're getting into that part of the year where the Mercury's about to get started. And Friday night is going to be extremely emotional. I'm not even sure what kind of emotion I'm going to be in Friday night, Courtland, watching Brittany take the court. They kind of did the scheduling wrong. They should have put the game in Phoenix to start the season. At home, but I think if the game is on, I think the game is ESPN late night Friday. So I'm gonna be up. It's probably gonna be emotional for me because, like I said, it's Brittany coming home, and I can't wait for it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can't wait. I think having Brittany back after, like I said, just the saga that was, her stint in Russia and just what was going on with that. I think it's great to have her back. Now that we get her back and we get to see her play basketball again. It's not so much as the somber moment, but now we get to celebrate her and see her play the game that she loves and the game that we love to see her play. But again, man, shout out to my guy Danny Thompson. This has been another great halftime show with your boy Courtlandt Griffin, man. A WNBA edition. We're going to be doing these more and more often. We understand that the NFL is starting up, NBA is going on, but the WNBA deserves some love, and they're always going to get it here at the halftime show. Please, if you could not catch this live, please go to the YouTube channel. It's my name, Courtlandt Griffin. You can definitely search it up there. You'll catch this episode with my guy Danny Thompson, and also the other 8 episodes of the halftime show. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all the love and support. Continue to support us. As y'all can see, I'm trying to make this headline down here on the screen happen.
Claim it, bro. Claim it.
Host of future award-winning hosts. So I can't wait to see where this year is going to take us. Take the halftime show, and definitely you'll catch all the sports journeys and storylines as well. I'll have more guests and more things to talk about. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. There'll be more in store. This has been the halftime show with your boy Courtlandt Griffin. Sending off. Peace.